The United States has named Thailand, Malaysia, and Venezuela among the worst in the world for combating modern slavery. But one African leader is showing others how to make the grade. VOA's Pande has more from Washington.
The 2014 Trafficking in Persons report placed Thailand in Tier 3, the lowest category among 23 countries that the United States says are not meeting minimum standards to address modern slavery. In Thailand, the report focuses on the tens of thousands of migrants who are forced into the country's fishing industry, as well as its sex trade. The Tier 3 listing opens up Thailand and others to possible U.S. sanctions. The State Department assessed 188 countries, including the United States, in hopes of propelling governments to act on behalf of the 20 million victims of modern slavery, whether by increasing law enforcement efforts or by raising public awareness. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry called trafficking one of the greatest threats to human dignity and freedom.
It's a call to action to governments and citizens around the world to uncover modern slavery and hold it accountable, to identify the victims and bring their abusers to justice. There cannot be impunity for those who traffic in human beings. It must end.
Officials noted some positive trends in this year's report. The State Department on Friday named 10 heroes in the ongoing effort, including Beatrice Jedy-Agba, the head of Nigeria's National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking, for her efforts to return and reintegrate Nigerian victims and collaborate with other African nations to address trafficking in the region.
I made a connection with those victims that I met, and I thought, I'm going to help you through with this, and I'm going to make sure nobody else has to go through this ever again.
Secretary Kerry said he hopes more people and governments will heed his call to action to address what he calls the scourge of modern slavery. Pande, VOA News, Washington.
And Africa 54's Paul Ndiho had an opportunity to have a more in-depth conversation with Beatrice Jedy-Agba, and she tells us more about the people being exploited and why she's so dedicated in her anti-trafficking efforts.
It is a huge problem, especially in my country, where some traditional and cultural values actually reinforces. Human trafficking is such a wide concept. It includes labor, forced labor as well. And so you go to mines and quarries and factories, and you see young children as young as 8 working in horrendous conditions, and they're out of school. They're not given the opportunity to reach their full developmental potentials. They're just working mindlessly. They can't run away. They don't have choices. They're not properly fed. And by the time they're 15 or 17, they're absolutely ruined for anything else in the country apart from maybe a life of crime. I remember once I met a victim who we assisted. We had repatriated her from Mali, and I bought her a cheap mobile phone, a pair of jeans and 2 tops. And she looked at me and she smiled and she said, "You're just like God to me. You've done something that nobody else has ever done for me. Nobody has ever given me anything. I've always had to work for everything that I got, and I can't believe that somebody who doesn't even know me cares so much." And that was my motivation, and I thought that if I could do that for just the one person, I'm going to have to do that for a lot more people.
That was Beatrice Jedy-Agba, Executive Secretary of Nigeria's National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking, speaking to VOA at the State Department. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com.